Tara Lawson's journey is a testament to unwavering dedication and quiet strength. Known for her hard work and humility, Tara has risen from the challenges of a modest background to become a respected medical director. Her story is one of triumph over adversity, a narrative of a woman who has proven her worth through sheer determination and compassion. However, today, as she steps into a temporary role on the hospital floor, Tara faces a test of a different nature. The encounter with Dr. Samuel Hughes, a physician known for his arrogance and disregard for the staff, turns her day upside down. What starts as an ordinary shift soon reveals the harsh reality of prejudice and disrespect. Watch as Tara handles the situation with grace and composure, demonstrating that true leadership and resilience shine through even in the face of unjust treatment. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Tara Lawson had always held steadfast to the principles of hard work and humility, values that had guided her throughout her life. In her early 40s, she moved through the hospital with quiet confidence, the kind that emanates from years of dedication and overcoming numerous challenges. Tara was a woman of considerable depth and substance, though one might not immediately sense it from her modest demeanor. Clad in the simple uniform of a nurse, she carried out her duties with a grace that belied her significant accomplishments. Today, she was stepping into the shoes of a colleague who was on leave, taking on responsibilities she hadn't routinely handled in years. This task did not daunt her. Tara was not one to seek accolades or flaunt her position, and she believed that no task was too menial for someone committed to the greater good. Tara's journey began with the grueling effort of working through medical school, a path paved with long hours, sleepless nights, and unwavering determination. Her early experiences forged her into the compassionate and effective leader she is today, serving as the medical director at one of the city's most esteemed hospitals. The road to her current position had been arduous and fraught with challenges. Growing up in a low-income neighborhood, Tara faced a landscape of limited opportunities, but she refused to let her circumstances dictate her future. Instead, these early hardships fueled her ambition and drive. Nursing was merely the beginning of her journey. Her true aspiration was always to rise higher and effect change on a larger scale. As time passed, Tara's expertise and commitment earned her the recognition she deserved. Her relentless dedication led to promotions, culminating in her current role as medical director. Despite her elevated status, Tara remained remarkably grounded. She believed that true leadership was not defined by titles, but by the ability to understand and support those who worked alongside you. This philosophy was why, even on this day, she found herself donning scrubs and working directly on the hospital floor, to lend a helping hand where it was most needed. Most of the staff recognized Tara's identity and respected her for her humility and willingness to pitch in during times of need. The hospital, a high-end institution known for serving the affluent and influential, boasted top-tier facilities, state-of-the-art technology, and highly skilled professionals. Yet, despite its impressive reputation, it was not without its flaws. The environment was inherently hierarchical, with distinct divisions between doctors and support staff. Nurses, in particular, often bore the brunt of this rigid structure. Many doctors perceived themselves as superior, not only in title but in worth. Tara had been working quietly but persistently to alter this ingrained culture ever since she assumed her leadership role. She understood that changing deep-seated attitudes would take time, and one particular individual embodied the resistance to this change. Dr. Samuel Hughes, a middle-aged white man who had ascended through the ranks of the medical field, was a highly skilled physician but was notorious for his arrogance. While his medical expertise earned him respect, his treatment of others, especially nurses, was less admirable. Dr. Hughes had an impeccable record with his patients, but his colleagues, particularly the nursing staff, found him insufferable. His interactions were marked by a lack of basic courtesy. He often issued orders with no regard for pleasantries or appreciation, his demeanor suggesting he viewed nurses as little more than subordinates. Dr. Hughes approached his role at the hospital with a singular, rigid focus. Respect, in his view, was something that flowed only in one direction, upward. He reserved his respect for those whom he considered his equals or superiors within the hierarchical structure of the hospital. The opinions of nurses were, to him, inconsequential, and he regarded teamwork as merely a means for everyone to execute his directives without question or hesitation. In his mind, his judgment was infallible, and any dissent was simply a sign of incompetence, a failure to grasp the intricate complexities of his decisions. Tara was aware of Dr. Hughes's reputation, though their professional interactions had been minimal. She had heard the murmurs of discontent from the nurses she managed, but chose to address these issues with a broader approach. Her aim was always to improve the overall culture of the workplace rather than confront individual behavior directly. However, given the intricate web of power dynamics in a hospital like this, it was only a matter of time before she and Dr. Hughes would inevitably cross paths. Today turned out to be that day. Dr. Hughes arrived at the hospital with his usual briskness, prepared for a day packed with surgeries, consultations, and the endless task of managing patients' expectations. Tasks he viewed as routine, mundane, and utterly unworthy of deviation. Delays and mistakes, particularly those he attributed to the nursing staff, were his pet peeves. He often found them too slow and incapable of keeping pace with his relentless tempo. As he entered the ward where Tara was temporarily stationed, his gaze swept across the room with barely a moment's consideration for the people he passed. To him, they were merely part of the backdrop, nurses, whose primary function was to adhere to his directives without any need for personal acknowledgement. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Tara, engrossed in her duties of reviewing patient charts, was initially oblivious to Dr. Hughes's arrival. Her focus was on ensuring that all the details of the patients under her care were meticulously managed. Her approach was calm, deliberate, and reflective of her extensive experience in nursing. She was unaware that Dr. Hughes had entered the room and was about to form a hasty and incorrect judgment that would lead to an unavoidable confrontation. Dr. Hughes, casting a cursory glance toward her, quickly dismissed her as just another nurse. It was a rapid judgment based purely on her appearance. She was, in his view, merely another cog in the operational machinery of the hospital, expected to follow his lead without question or challenge. As Dr. Hughes advanced toward her, his irritation was palpable. He had already begun to speak with a tone of condescension, not yet realizing the mistake he was about to make. He barked out instructions with an air of entitlement, oblivious to Tara's actual role and the respect she commanded within the hospital, a respect that was about to become evident to him. Tara, maintaining her professional composure, turned to face Dr. Hughes with a neutral expression. Though her demeanor was calm, there was an unspoken strength in her gaze, a power Dr. Hughes had not yet recognized but would soon come to understand. Tara was deeply immersed in her tasks, her focus on patient charts and ensuring that everything was in meticulous order for the forthcoming rounds. Her movements were fluid and precise, reflecting a deep-rooted dedication and years of experience. The sudden intrusion of rapid footsteps and a voice laced with impatience interrupted her concentration. Dr. Samuel Hughes had entered the room, his presence announced before he even spoke. Tara acknowledged him with a courteous nod, her attention quickly returning to her work. Dr. Hughes, however, did not reciprocate the gesture. Instead, he fixed his gaze on Tara with a narrowed, critical stare, as if her mere presence was a disruption. "Are you planning to just stand there all day?" Dr. Hughes demanded, his voice sharp and dripping with condescension. "I need these patient files updated. Can't you follow simple instructions?" His tone was dismissive, a reflection of his belief that anyone who questioned him was inherently lacking in competence. Tara paused for a moment, momentarily caught off guard by the harshness in Dr. Hughes's tone. The abruptness of his voice took her by surprise, but she quickly steadied herself and refocused. She glanced down at the chart she was holding, ensuring that all the details were accurate and up-to-date before responding. Her voice, though calm and measured, belied the tension she was feeling. "I'm following the standard protocol, Doctor. The files will be updated shortly." Despite her composed demeanor, Dr. Hughes was uninterested in any explanations or justifications. His eyes flashed with irritation, and with a dismissive wave of his hand, he conveyed that her response was an unwelcome inconvenience. "I don't have time for excuses," he snapped, his voice rising in volume. "This hospital is struggling enough as it is without staff like you slowing things down." The atmosphere in the room grew increasingly tense. The other nurses exchanged uneasy glances, their discomfort palpable. Tara could feel their eyes on her, and the weight of their gaze added to the mounting pressure she was experiencing. Nearby junior doctors froze, caught in a dilemma of whether to intervene or remain passive. It was not uncommon for Dr. Hughes to express dissatisfaction with the staff, but today's reprimand felt unusually sharp and personal. His words cut deeper than usual, laden with unwarranted assumptions and biases. Tara felt the sting not because of any real fault on her part, but because of the prejudiced assumptions underlying his criticism. He hadn't even given her a chance to explain or demonstrate her competence. He had simply decided she was inadequate based on superficial judgments. Despite the harshness of his words, Tara maintained her composure. She refused to let his disdainful remarks provoke an emotional reaction. "I'm performing my duties as instructed," Tara replied steadily, her voice unwavering despite the frustration simmering inside her. "I'm ensuring that patient care remains uncompromised." Dr. Hughes, however, was not in a listening mood. His voice grew louder, drawing the attention of others in the vicinity. "This is exactly what I mean," he said, gesturing toward Tara with exaggerated emphasis. "No sense of urgency, no attention to detail. It's no wonder things don't run smoothly around here with staff like this." His accusations were heavy and accusatory, hanging in the air like a dense fog of blame. Tara stood her ground, feeling the collective gaze of the room upon her, but she steadfastly refused to let her expression betray her feelings. The sting of his words was sharp, but what hurt more was the underlying assumption behind them. Dr. Hughes had not taken the time to understand her qualifications, her dedication, or her background. Instead, he had simply dismissed her as a problem, reducing her to a stereotype rather than acknowledging her as a skilled professional. Dr. Hughes continued, his frustration becoming more evident with each word. "Maybe this job is too much for you," he said, his condescension dripping from every syllable. "Perhaps you're not suited for a place like this. We can't afford mistakes, not in a hospital of this caliber." The subtle implication in his statement was unmistakable. The phrase, "a place like this," carried an underlying assumption that Tara did not belong, that she, being a black woman in a nurse's uniform, was somehow out of place in such a prestigious institution. It was a veiled comment that he would never have directed at another doctor or a nurse he respected. Tara's eyes swept across the room, taking in the scene. The other staff members stood in awkward silence, their discomfort clear. They had overheard the disparaging comment as well, but no one spoke up. The silence was as deafening as Dr. Hughes's words and cut just as deeply. Tara recognized the unsaid. The way the room's silence reinforced the harsh reality of the prejudices she faced. Tara felt a surge of anger, a powerful wave that threatened to overwhelm her. She could almost feel it bubbling up inside her, a seething torrent of frustration and indignation. Yet, she managed to contain it, forcing herself to swallow the fiery emotion. This wasn't the right moment or place to let her anger out. She was acutely aware that she could have disclosed her true position at that very moment. She could have announced to Dr. Hughes that she was the medical director of this hospital, overseeing departments and operations far beyond his understanding, wielding authority and responsibility he had not even begun to grasp. But she knew that doing so would not address the core of the problem. It wouldn't alter his attitude, nor would it confront the underlying prejudices that had led to this degrading interaction. In that charged atmosphere, she took a deep breath, drawing on every ounce of inner strength to center herself. "I'll make sure everything is handled," she said, her voice quiet, but imbued with a steady and unyielding firmness. Dr. Hughes barely acknowledged her words. His focus was absorbed in his frustrations, rendering him oblivious to the impact of his dismissive behavior. "Just get it done," he muttered tersely, his irritation palpable as he stormed away, leaving behind a trail of tension and discomfort. Tara remained standing there for a moment longer, her hand still gripping the patient chart. Her mind was racing, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. She felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. She had been humiliated in front of her colleagues and treated with a condescending disregard as though she was less than or unworthy of being in her position. This wasn't merely about her temporary role as a nurse for the day. It was a reflection of something deeper, something more insidious. It was about the fact that she, as a black woman, was perceived by Dr. Hughes as an intruder in a space where he felt she had no rightful place. Yet, Terera was not the type to let anger consume her. She refused to give Dr. Hughes the satisfaction of seeing her upset or rattled. With a quiet resolve, she decided to carry out her shift with the same dignity and composure she had always maintained. When the appropriate time came, she would address this situation properly through the established channels of authority. Terera knew her value and her professional worth, even if Dr. Hughes did not. As she turned back to her duties, she could sense the eyes of the staff on her once more. This time, however, there was a distinct shift in their gazes, a subtle but discernible recognition of respect. They had witnessed the entire exchange, and although no one had spoken out in that tense moment, they had observed Terera's grace under pressure. Despite Dr. Hughes's attempt to demean her publicly, Terera's ability to maintain her composure was something he could never take away from her. The day eventually drew to a close, but it left Terera with an unsettling weight she could not shake off. After her shift ended, she returned to her office, the very space where she made critical decisions as the hospital's medical director. Yet, today, the office felt different. It felt like a stark contrast to the confidence and authority she usually experienced there. The events of the day had made her feel diminished, reduced to a mere nurse in the eyes of someone who neither knew her true identity nor cared to understand her position. It was a harsh reminder of the liberties Dr. Hughes had taken, liberties he had no right to assume. Seated at her desk, Terera replayed the painful moment over and over in her mind. The sting of Dr. Hughes's words echoed relentlessly, each dismissive comment reverberating with a sense of finality that left her unsettled. Though she had weathered numerous challenges throughout her career, this instance felt different. It wasn't the overt racism or sexism she had confronted in the past. It was the subtle, insidious manner in which Dr. Hughes had so casually assumed her incompetence and undesirability. It was his casual disregard for her as a person that pierced deeper than any overt prejudice she had faced before. Terera reflected on the long and arduous journey she had endured to reach her current position. She thought about her path from being a nurse to becoming the medical director, a journey marked by years of tireless work, unwavering resilience, and personal sacrifice. She recalled the countless late nights spent studying medical texts, the moments of being the only black woman in a room full of others, and the numerous times she had been underestimated or dismissed. Though these challenges were not new, they still hurt deeply. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. With a heavy sigh, she reached for her phone and texted her close friend and colleague, Janelle. Their shared experiences and deep mutual understanding made Janelle the ideal person for Terera to confide in. Within minutes, Janelle's call came through, her voice filled with concern. "What happened today?" Janelle asked, her tone immediately reflecting the understanding that something significant had occurred. Terera hesitated for a moment, struggling to find the right words. "It's Dr. Hughes," she began, her voice tinged with frustration. "He berated me in front of the entire staff, treating me as though I was insignificant and unworthy." Janelle's sigh on the other end of the line was laden with empathy and concern. "What exactly did he say?" she asked gently, wanting to provide the support Terera needed. Terera recalled the incident with a palpable sense of frustration, the sting of Dr. Hughes's words still vivid in her memory. "He treated me as if I were utterly incompetent," she began, her voice tinged with the lingering hurt. "He belittled me in front of everyone, completely dismissing my explanations and failing to even attempt to understand my perspective. His condescension was public, and I could see the disdain in the eyes of the nurses and junior doctors around us. It was as though they saw me as nothing more than a helpless bystander, incapable of handling my responsibilities." Janelle listened intently, her silence speaking volumes as she processed Terera's recounting. Terera could sense Janelle's simmering anger even through the phone. "And you didn't confront him about it?" Janelle asked, her voice thick with concern. Tara shook her head, even though Janelle couldn't see the gesture. "No, I decided against it. I didn't believe it would have resolved anything. Dr. Hughes wouldn't have listened, and I didn't want to escalate the situation unnecessarily. It's not just about my grievance. It's part of a larger issue. This incident isn't isolated. It's reflective of a broader cultural problem." Janelle's voice softened, though her frustration was still evident. "You shouldn't have to endure that kind of treatment, especially from someone in his position." Tara leaned back in her chair, her posture reflective of the weight of the situation. "I understand, but I need to approach this carefully. This isn't merely about this single incident. It's about addressing the underlying culture in this place and the systemic issues affecting the treatment of staff, especially those from minority backgrounds. I'll address it, but I need to do it the right way." Meanwhile, the ripple effects of the confrontation were already becoming apparent in other parts of the hospital. A small group of nurses, who had witnessed the incident, gathered in the break room. Their conversation was hushed, but their disbelief was palpable. "Did anyone else see what happened between Dr. Hughes and Tara earlier?" one nurse asked, her voice laden with shock. "I was stunned by the way he spoke to her, as if she were completely incompetent." "Absolutely," another nurse agreed, her tone filled with incredulity. "It was as if he regarded her as a novice who didn't deserve to be there. I'm impressed by how she managed to stay so composed in that situation." A senior nurse, who had been in the hospital for many years and knew Tara well, approached the group. Overhearing their conversation, she decided to weigh in. "Do any of you know who Tara is?" she asked, her voice lowered to avoid being overheard. The younger nurses exchanged puzzled looks, shaking their heads in unison. "She's not just a nurse," the senior nurse continued, her tone carrying a mix of respect and disbelief. "She's the medical director of this entire hospital." Dr. Hughes, in his arrogance, didn't realize that he was talking down to his superior. The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap, and a heavy silence fell as the gravity of the situation sank in. The nurses exchanged wide-eyed glances, their previous astonishment now compounded by the realization of the magnitude of Dr. Hughes's mistake. Tara had endured that public humiliation without revealing her true position, a testament to her composure and professionalism. Elsewhere, Dr. Hughes remained blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. He had already moved on from the incident, dismissing it as just another day managing staff he perceived as needing more training or discipline. Later that day, as he enjoyed a coffee break with a colleague, Dr. Hughes recounted the incident with a casual smirk. "I had to put one of the nurses in her place earlier today," he said nonchalantly. "She was slowing things down and not paying attention to what needed to be done. Some people just aren't cut out for this line of work." His colleague, a younger doctor who had recently joined the hospital, shifted uneasily in his seat, clearly unsettled. He held a deep respect for Tara, even though he was unaware of the specific events that had transpired between her and Dr. Hughes earlier in the day. Now, as he listened to the casual arrogance in Dr. Hughes's tone, he found himself at a loss for how to respond. His discomfort was palpable. He didn't want to risk offending Dr. Hughes, but he also struggled with the idea of letting such disrespect go unchallenged. Yeah," the younger doctor mumbled, his voice trailing off as he tried to steer the conversation away from the troubling topic. He was caught in a difficult position, wanting to avoid further conflict while also feeling a moral obligation to address the inappropriate comments. Dr. Hughes, with a dismissive shrug, brushed off the situation as if it were a minor inconvenience. "I'm sure she was just having an off moment," he said nonchalantly. "Maybe. Still, I expect more from the staff here." His words echoed with a condescending air, revealing his lack of concern for the impact of his behavior on others. The younger doctor remained silent, his internal conflict growing. He understood that there was an unspoken code in the hospital, a demand for perfection that left no room for error. However, he was also becoming increasingly aware of the whispers and undercurrents of discontent that were beginning to circulate throughout the hospital. Word of Tara's true position and her previous contributions was slowly spreading, and with it, a growing sense of unease among the staff. The more people learned about her role and the situation with Dr. Hughes, the more the atmosphere seemed to shift. Tara, on her part, was determined not to let the issue fester without addressing it. While she had no interest in seeking revenge or exacting public retribution, she recognized that something needed to be done. This situation was not merely about Dr. Hughes's behavior. It highlighted a deeper, systemic issue within the hospital's culture, a culture that had allowed such disrespect and misconduct to go unchecked. Back in her office, Tara began to draft a formal report. Her aim was not to recount every detail of the incident, but to address the broader implications. She outlined the urgent need for enhanced training on respect and communication, particularly emphasizing the interactions between doctors and nurses. She also addressed the subtle biases that frequently went unnoticed, particularly those affecting minority staff members. Her goal was clear: to ensure that no one else would have to endure the same mistreatment she had experienced. As Tara worked on her report, she anticipated that it would only be a matter of time before Dr. Hughes became aware of his mistake. She did not intend to confront him directly. Instead, she trusted that the hospital leadership would handle that aspect. The growing awareness of Tara's true position and the nature of her complaint would eventually reach Dr. Hughes, and when it did, the full weight of his actions would become evident. By then, it would be too late to undo the damage he had caused. Tara entered the boardroom, where the sterile, cold environment was filled with the quiet hum of hospital administrators shuffling papers and whispering among themselves. She felt the weight of what was about to unfold pressing heavily upon her, but she maintained a calm and composed demeanor. Today's meeting was not just about addressing the specific incident between her and Dr. Hughes. It was about confronting a deeper, pervasive issue in the hospital's culture, one that had allowed such incidents to occur in the first place. As Dr. Hughes walked into the room, his confidence was evident in his stride. He offered a brief nod to the senior hospital management before taking a seat directly across from Tara. At that moment, he remained unaware of the true significance of the meeting. To him, this was just another routine discussion, one he anticipated would end with him walking away unscathed as usual. Mr. Thompson, the head of hospital management, initiated the meeting with a tone that conveyed the seriousness of the situation. "Dr. Hughes," he began, his voice steady but firm, "we are gathered here today to address a recent incident involving yourself and a member of our staff. A formal complaint has been lodged concerning your conduct, and we must understand your perspective on the matter." Dr. Hughes adjusted his posture in the chair, his demeanor marked by a trace of irritation. "Let me be clear," he responded, his voice carrying an undertone of frustration. "I was merely performing my duties. I need to ensure that the staff adheres to the standards we have set, especially when operational efficiency is at risk. The nurse in question was hindering the workflow, and I intervened to safeguard the quality of patient care. My actions were not intended to be personal. They were about enforcing order and maintaining professionalism." Tara sat silently, her hands neatly folded in her lap. She had anticipated this defensive stance from Dr. Hughes. It was evident that he viewed his actions as not only justified but necessary. His defensive tone and rigid posture suggested he was prepared to challenge anyone who questioned his authority. Mr. Thompson, recognizing that it was now Tara's turn to speak, gave her a discreet nod. Tara met Dr. Hughes's gaze briefly before addressing the room with a calm, controlled demeanor. "I fully acknowledge the significance of maintaining efficiency in patient care," she began, her voice unwavering. "However, the incident in question transcended mere efficiency. It was a matter of respect, or rather, the lack thereof." Dr. Hughes shifted in his seat, his discomfort evident, yet he remained silent. Tara pressed on, her voice steady and deliberate. "Dr. Hughes, your actions went beyond simply correcting my performance. You publicly demeaned me in front of both staff and patients. You questioned my professional competence without making any effort to understand who I am or what my qualifications entail. Your actions were based on unfounded assumptions and biases. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time." The room grew quiet as Tara's words resonated, creating a palpable tension. Dr. Hughes's expression began to shift, his previous confidence replaced by a flicker of uncertainty as he grappled with the implications of her statement. For the first time, his demeanor showed signs of vulnerability. Tara took a measured breath and continued, "What you failed to realize, Dr. Hughes, is that I am not merely a nurse. I hold the position of medical director at this hospital." A stunned silence followed Tara's revelation, during which Dr. Hughes's eyes widened in disbelief. He attempted to respond but found himself momentarily speechless, his usual poise and self-assurance evaporating. The gravity of Tara's disclosure hung heavily in the air, and the arrogance that had previously characterized Dr. Hughes's presence was replaced by a palpable unease, leaving the room to absorb the weight of this newfound understanding. "I didn't feel the need to correct you in front of the staff that day," Tara said calmly, her tone unwavering and steady. "I had the option to address the situation immediately and publicly, but that wasn't my intent. The real issue here transcends the superficial matter of titles and ranks. What truly matters is how we conduct ourselves and treat each other within this hospital, particularly when it comes to race and hierarchical differences. Your behavior was not only unprofessional, but also dismissive. It highlighted a more profound issue that extends beyond this isolated incident." Dr. Hughes appeared visibly unsettled, his face reddening as he glanced nervously at the hospital management, clearly seeking some form of support, which he did not receive. He struggled to compose himself, his words faltering as he attempted to respond. I didn't realize, I didn't know who you were. But I wasn't trying to be." Mr. Thompson leaned forward, his voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence with authority. "Dr. Hughes, this issue goes beyond a mere misunderstanding. It touches upon the broader culture of how we treat one another here. The situation that unfolded cannot simply be brushed aside." Dr. Hughes fell silent, the gravity of the situation beginning to weigh heavily upon him. It was evident he was grappling with how to salvage his reputation. After a moment, he exhaled deeply, his voice now subdued and stripped of its previous arrogance. "I see now that I made a mistake. I'm sorry for the way I treated you, Dr. Lawson. I didn't mean to show disrespect, but I recognize that my actions were inappropriate." The apology lingered in the air, awkward and hesitant. Tara regarded him with a steady gaze, noting the discomfort in his eyes and the visible effort he was making to admit his fault. However, her aim was not personal vindication. She was focused on fostering meaningful change. "I appreciate your apology," Tara said, her voice calm and measured. "But this isn't just about me. It's about how we proceed as a hospital. We need to address and rectify the biases that permitted this situation to occur. This is an opportunity for all of us to reflect on and improve the way we treat each other, regardless of our position, race, or background." The hospital management nodded in agreement, their expression serious. Mr. Thompson addressed the room with determination. "We take this incident very seriously. We will be conducting a comprehensive internal review of our policies and staff conduct. Furthermore, we will implement mandatory bias training and reinforce a culture of respect and professionalism throughout all levels of our staff." Tara felt a sense of relief wash over her as she heard these commitments. This was not about exacting punishment from Dr. Hughes, but rather about ensuring the hospital took meaningful steps toward fostering a more inclusive and respectful environment. She had not sought to humiliate him or exact revenge, and now she felt reassured that real, systemic change could be achieved. As the meeting drew to a close, Dr. Hughes rose from his seat, still visibly shaken by the events. He glanced at Tara one last time, his voice barely audible. "Again, I'm sorry. I'll strive to do better." Tara offered a simple nod, her expression remaining neutral. She understood that only time would reveal whether his apology would lead to tangible improvements. For now, she had stood her ground with dignity and used this moment to advocate for necessary systemic changes. As she left the meeting, Tara felt a sense of closure. She had managed to address the conflict without escalating it, and in doing so, she had held Dr. Hughes and the hospital to a higher standard. The real work was just beginning, but Tara was confident that this was a crucial step forward. The changes at the hospital were both swift and profound, marking a significant shift in the institution's culture. Just days after the pivotal meeting, senior management issued a formal announcement outlining a series of new policies designed to address the issues that had come to light. One of the most notable changes was the mandatory implementation of diversity training for all staff members, spanning every level of the hierarchy from top-ranking doctors to custodial staff. Tara, having played a crucial role in advocating for these reforms, was deeply involved in shaping the new training programs. She ensured that the sessions went beyond superficial discussions and delved into the more profound issues of bias, power dynamics, and racial inequities that had long plagued the workplace. Tara was acutely aware that her confrontation with Dr. Hughes was not an isolated incident, but rather a symptom of a broader, systemic problem within the hospital's culture. She was resolute in her mission to use her position to effect meaningful change and prevent others from experiencing the same kind of mistreatment she had endured. Her dedication and resilience did not go unnoticed. The staff, particularly those who had witnessed the incident, began to see Tara in a new light. Nurses who had observed her handling the verbal attacks with quiet dignity and without disclosing her true identity now recognized her strength and grace. The conversations in the break rooms transformed as well, with staff members openly discussing the need for the hospital to uphold dignity and respect for everyone, regardless of their rank or race. The focus shifted away from hierarchical distinctions towards fostering an environment where every individual felt valued and supported. Tara emerged as a powerful symbol of this cultural shift. She became a leader who exemplified the values she sought to instill, using her authority not to dominate but to uplift and support her colleagues. Her approach to leadership was marked by humility and a commitment to empowering others, rather than exerting control. In stark contrast, Dr. Hughes underwent his process of transformation. Initially, his apology to Tara was formal and somewhat detached, more a reaction to the pressure he faced than a sincere acknowledgement of his wrongdoing. However, as time passed, the impact of the situation began to resonate with him. He started participating in the diversity training sessions with a newfound earnestness, reflecting deeply on his behaviors and attitudes. The self-reflection was uncomfortable and challenging for him, but he recognized it as a necessary step in his journey toward genuine change. Dr. Hughes began to see his behavior in a new light, understanding how his attitudes had contributed to a toxic environment. He no longer approached the diversity training sessions as a mere obligation, but engaged with them with genuine interest and commitment. He listened intently to the perspectives of staff members he had previously overlooked and began to question the culture that had allowed him to act with such disregard for others. In one particularly impactful training session, Dr. Hughes took a significant step forward. He stood up and shared his personal experience with the group, openly admitting how his preconceived notions had led him to treat Tara unfairly. He spoke candidly about his ongoing efforts to change his behavior and the steps he was taking to become more self-aware. His vulnerability and honesty surprised many of his colleagues, but also earned him a measure of respect. Although it was not easy, Dr. Hughes made a concerted effort to rebuild trust with his peers, particularly with the nursing staff. He took on a mentorship role, guiding younger doctors on the importance of teamwork and mutual respect among all hospital staff. The transformation was not instantaneous, and the journey towards a more inclusive and respectful workplace was gradual, with inevitable setbacks. Nevertheless, the progress was undeniable. Tara's steadfast commitment to fostering a culture of respect and equality ignited a crucial dialogue within the hospital. Her efforts were instrumental in shifting the institutional culture, and she remained dedicated to ensuring that the values of fairness and dignity she championed became deeply ingrained in the fabric of the hospital's operations and interactions. Beyond the walls of the hospital, Tara's experience began to reverberate through the broader medical community and beyond. The story of her confrontation with Dr. Hughes and the subsequent changes at her hospital did not remain confined to one institution. It sparked a wider conversation about racial and gender biases in professional settings. News of the reforms and the discussions they inspired quickly spread to other hospitals, particularly those with similar hierarchical structures. As a result, these institutions began reaching out to Tara for advice and guidance on how to implement their reforms. This growing awareness was a testament to the ripple effect of her actions and how a single incident could catalyze significant conversations about power dynamics and systemic inequality. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Tara's newfound influence led to a flurry of invitations to speak at various high-profile conferences and events. She was asked to present her experience not only as a personal narrative of overcoming injustice, but as a compelling case study in initiating systemic change through individual courage and action. She spoke at prestigious medical schools, influential hospital leadership summits, and prominent diversity and inclusion panels. During these engagements, Tara emphasized the urgent need for empathy, open-mindedness, and accountability at every level of the healthcare system. Her message was clear. True progress required a cultural shift that embraced respect and equality, and this shift needed to begin with each individual's actions and attitudes. Despite the increasing recognition and opportunities, Tara remained focused on her primary goal, using her platform to advocate for broader changes that would benefit everyone, especially marginalized groups within the workforce. Her commitment was not driven by a desire for fame or personal accolades, but by a deep-seated belief in the necessity of creating a more equitable and inclusive environment. She understood that her experiences and insights could help pave the way for others to navigate and challenge similar systemic issues. In her quieter moments, Tara found herself reflecting on the arduous journey that had brought her to this significant juncture. She thought back to the early days of her career when she faced a multitude of obstacles. She remembered how, time and again, she felt the need to work twice as hard to be seen as half as competent as her peers. Growing up, she had never imagined that she would one day hold a position of such influence and responsibility. Yet, through sheer determination, perseverance, and the unwavering support of her family and mentors, she had achieved her goal of becoming a medical director. Now, she found herself in a position to effectuate the very changes she had wished for during her earlier years, a more just and inclusive workplace where individuals were evaluated based on their abilities rather than their race or hierarchical status. Tara frequently shared these reflections with her close friends and family, expressing her gratitude for the opportunity to make a meaningful difference. One evening, as she sat with her husband and their 2 children in their cozy living room, she conveyed her thoughts. "I never sought to be in the spotlight," she said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. "But if this experience can help others and bring about positive change, then it has been worth every challenge and every moment of hardship." Her husband, looking at her with admiration and pride, smiled warmly and took her hand in his. "You're making a real difference, Tara. People are listening to you and taking action because of what you've shared. That's a true legacy," he affirmed, recognizing the profound impact of her efforts and the far-reaching influence of her advocacy. Tara was not motivated by a quest for personal glory, yet she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The incident, initially fraught with embarrassment and discomfort, had become a pivotal moment for substantial and enduring change. Tara's ability to transform a difficult situation into an opportunity for improvement had far-reaching implications. She envisioned the hospital's evolution as more than just internal progress. She hoped it would serve as a beacon for other institutions, encouraging them to adopt similar practices and foster environments of respect and inclusivity. In the months following the incident, the hospital underwent significant and positive transformations. The training sessions that Tara had advocated for became a staple in the development programs for staff. These sessions were designed to enhance awareness around diversity, equity, and inclusion, providing staff with the tools and knowledge to create a more supportive and respectful workplace. Hospital leadership took active steps to promote a culture of inclusivity, ensuring that diverse perspectives were represented in leadership roles. As a result, there was a noticeable shift in the work environment. Nurses, junior doctors, and custodial staff all reported feeling a greater sense of respect and value within the organization. The changes fostered a more collaborative and supportive atmosphere, reflecting a commitment to addressing the issues highlighted by the incident. The incident with Dr. Hughes became a significant historical reference point for the hospital, a reminder of the progress they had made and the ongoing efforts required to continue advancing. It was discussed in training sessions and staff meetings as a case study of how challenges could be met with positive and constructive responses. This reflection helped to reinforce the hospital's commitment to creating a fair and equitable workplace. As for Tara, her work continued both within the hospital and across the broader medical community. Despite her pivotal role in initiating change, she remained remarkably humble. Tara did not seek attention or accolades for her contributions. Rather, she focused on the broader mission of fostering a workplace where every individual, irrespective of their background or position, was treated with the utmost respect and dignity. She understood that while significant strides had been made, the journey toward genuine inclusivity was ongoing. Tara's commitment extended beyond her immediate environment. She engaged with various professional organizations and community groups to advocate for similar changes in other institutions. Her efforts were driven by a profound belief in the need for systemic change and a dedication to ensuring that the lessons learned from the incident would have a lasting impact. Ultimately, Tara's story transcended her individual experience. It became emblematic of a larger movement within the hospital, the community, and the medical profession at large. It was a story of confronting and addressing institutional biases and shortcomings with quiet strength and an unwavering commitment to justice. While acknowledging that there was still much work to be done, Tara's efforts illuminated a brighter future. Her influence extended beyond the confines of her hospital, setting a precedent for others and fostering a culture of respect and inclusion that would benefit countless individuals in the years to come. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey with Tara Lawson. Her story is a powerful reminder of the importance of perseverance, dignity, and handling adversity with grace. As we reflect on her experiences, we invite you to consider what you've learned from this video. What insights have resonated with you? Is there one particular lesson from Tara's encounter with Dr. Hughes that you will take to heart and apply in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know how you plan to put these lessons into practice. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means a lot and helps us continue to bring you inspiring content.